This week's Dark Side of the Ring focused on the story of the superstar, Billy Graham. Normally, I would do a review on the Ringside Rant podcast, which would be on 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, but because of the draft, we didn't have a recording, so I decided to make a special recording on a Dark Side of the Ring review on superstar Billy Graham. Superstar is one of the more influential and important superstars of all time because he influenced so many people to get into business. The three names that come to mind are Jesse the Body Ventura, Scott Steiner, and of course the immortal Hulk Hogan, who took a lot of what Billy Graham used throughout his career. He popularized it. It was Billy Graham that started a lot of it, and I'll get into some of the things later. But when you also look at superstar Billy Graham, he lived a really dark life. And if there are two words that I think of, it's cautionary tale, especially in why you should never abuse steroids. Because let's be real, Billy Graham did a ton of steroids and probably not the best idea to burn bridges. And while watching the documentary, I learned a lot of things. So here we go. So the episode starts out with Billy Graham. They talked a little bit about his childhood. They talked about him growing up. I knew he was in he had a rough childhood. His father and his mother, it seemed like they were abusive, and financially they weren't as set as normal as someone who would normally be. And he would often get tormented and teased by his father, saying he would never amount to anything. And it would always be something that would be stuck in the back of his mind. And I remembered watching the documentary that while he was growing up poor, he wanted to go after his father. So he decided to lift weights. He actually used concrete, and it's basically dumbbells, and he used that to lift it up. And he got really, really strong. And he decided to go into bodybuilding. And it was there where he had a close relationship with one Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's right. He and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they basically were training on the road with each other, which I did not know. And I'm a big Arnold Schwarzenegger guy. And the cool thing is there's photos that they showed of Arnold holding both of Billy Graham's kids, which I found fascinating. I've never seen these photos before. And of course, when it comes to bodybuilding, like steroids comes into play, and Arnold Schwarzenegger has admitted his steroid use. Billy Graham later in the episode admitted he started using steroids during his time in college, and he used them to get into bodybuilding and into pro wrestling. So they talk a little bit about his personal life and how his first relationship actually ended because he was cheating on his wife. I mean, what else is new? Professional wrestlers there are so many examples of them cheating on their spouses. Billy Graham actually did that. And he was getting so popular. He was a WWF champion. Vince Sr. decided to put the title on Billy Graham, who would defeat Bruno Sammartino, ending his 4-year championship reign. This was not the 10-year reign. This was the second reign Bruno had, where it was 4 years. Billy Graham had the title. And you talk about long-term booking. Not only was Billy Graham told when he would lose the title, but when he would, gain the title and lose the title. So he pretty much knew what the plan was, and no matter what, he was going to drop that title to Bob Backlund, which, I mean, say what you want. I mean, it was the right move because Bob Backlund was the hand-picked guy for Vince Sr., and he was not going away from that plan, which angered Billy Graham. And it clearly angered everyone else because Billy Graham was selling out everywhere he went. And there was even a story where he even sold out Madison Square Garden as the champion, which is just amazing. And it would feel a little off with having Graham drop the title to someone like Bob Backlund. And it was a weird decision, but no matter what, him being the champion was important to him. And of course, while he was champion, like I mentioned earlier with the cheating, he would cheat on his wife with Valerie, who, oh, by the way, was 18 years old. Kind of weird for someone that was Billy Graham's age. I think he was in his mid-30s to start a relationship with an 18-year-old. A little weird. So while he was champion, she told the story of how they met. And she even also told the story of how Billy Graham would constantly overdose on multiple different pills, which I can't even believe that really happened. And the fact that he overdosed while as the champion, really concerning. And he almost passed away. He almost passed away with these overdoses. And Valerie remembers that the medical staff was there in their apartment. They were beating on his chest, making sure that he was alive. He almost passed away from that, which is crazy. And Valerie even admitted that it was such an intense time for her just witnessing that. And it's kind of an understatement when you see your partner overdosing. But yeah, while champion, there was a clear plan. He had a problem with drugs, and obviously he was roided up. And when he dropped the title, everyone admitted he was never the same after that day. Billy Graham was never the same career-wise, and he just couldn't get over losing that title. He just couldn't. He thought it was really over. And Billy Graham even admitted he never forgave Vince McMahon Sr. of ending his title reign the way they did. And what I find weird is that they threw Bob Backlund under the bus for this. Like, I think it was his son that said, I hate that guy. And I'm like, it's not Bob Backlund's fault. It really isn't. So Billy Graham, ever since losing that title, like, he decides to go on a hiatus. Like, he's so upset with pro wrestling. He decides in the late 70s, early 90s, early 80s, that he was going to go on a hiatus. While on this hiatus, he decided to go into the lawn mowing business. He decided that, I'm just going to burn all my gear. He put all the gear that he wore during his peak, including his glasses, his boas, what he wore. He decided to burn it all, which is a shame because, like, all that is history. Like, what he wore could have been put in a museum if WWE would ever to make a museum. And while Graham was in his hiatus, he decided to run lawn care, and he decided to try to quit his drug use cold turkey, which is great, but it's kind of dangerous because you're so used to the pills and you're so used to the drugs that you'll get serious withdrawal symptoms, and that happened with Billy Graham. He almost died yet again from a seizure, and ever since that happened, he went right back to the drugs. All because he tried quitting cold turkey and that didn't work. Drugs, man. You don't do them, guys. Just don't do them. And here's the craziest part, too, and I'm glad they mentioned this, and I mentioned it on my latest preview article on the Billy Graham episode. There were people in the industry that thought that Billy Graham was dead, and I got the picture right here. I don't know if you guys can see it to prove it. It says, this was written by Gorilla Monsoon, that they thought Billy Graham had died. They believe that this man was dead in 1981. And I'll read the entire thing for you right now. This was written by Gorilla Monsoon in the Philadelphia Journal column in 1981. This week's column begins on a sad note. The wrestling world has been shocked by the death of former world champion superstar Billy Graham, who died of cancer recently in his hometown, Paradise Valley. Although I had many controversial matches with Billy, he was always one of the more respected men in our business. He will surely be missed. Graham's career was marred by controversy on April 30th, 1977, when Superstar ended Bruno Sammartino's second reign of world champion after 3.5 years. Technically, it was 4 years, but they threw 3.5 years for some reason. Many viewers, including me, saw Graham illegally use the ropes for leverage in obtaining the victory, but the referees saw differently, and Graham left the ring and the world title belt. He dodged, a bullet there, and he became champion and defended the title more than any champion in that history. On February 20th, 1978, Superstar was controversially pinned by Bob Backlund. It was disputed because Superstar had his left leg outside the ring, and the referee counted 3. Graham protested and was awarded a rematch that was won by decision when Bob Backlund bled profusely. There was no pin or submission, so Superstar did not get his title belt. He won via DQ, is what they're saying here. The two fought again, this time with the belt up for grabs and the steel cage bout. After 20 minutes of a ferocious action dominated by Graham, Superstar got his leg caught up in the bars of the cage and Backlund climbed over to regain his crown. My latest contest is asking you to guess how many career matches San Martino fought. Only brought hundreds of the entries, two of them. Terry Gargano and Mark Coyle of the Philadelphia came close to the exact guess, 7,500. We now have a tiebreaker, and this is basically going into the San Martino match. But that is what is said in the Billy Graham tribute. And to be honest, it's kind of a terrible one because A, it's not true. B, like they didn't even like print a new copy saying, "Oh, we made a mistake. He's still alive." Like it's really, really crazy that got published, and the fact that they didn't have an apology for a very serious mistake like that. And I'm glad this got brought up because not a lot of people remember that they thought Billy Graham was dead at the time. So that was cool seeing that. And I even had the newspaper over there. So Billy Graham, comes back to the WWE in 1984, and Vince, like he is not what he was. Like you could tell this man was off the steroids, and he didn't look right. He came back with a bald head. He came back with a mustache. He didn't look like he previously did. And something interesting to know too was Vince McMahon has on record, according to Dave Meltzer, said if prime Billy Graham came in 1984 when he took over the business and was planning world domination, he would have been his Hulk Hogan, which is very, very true because Billy Graham was modeled like Hulk Hogan took a lot of what Billy Graham did at the time. So if Billy Graham was in his prime at that time, he absolutely would have been the face of the company. Now, this wasn't mentioned, but in the Mr. McMahon documentary, Vince McMahon admitted this himself that Dusty Rhodes was the original plan to be the face until Dusty was like, yeah, that don't work for me, brother, if you know what I mean. So he declined and he went with Hulk Hogan. Now, we have to talk about his steroid use again because it affected his career and it affected his lifestyle. Like I said, when Graham came back, he didn't look the same, but his hips were knackered. Like you could tell this man had a bad hip problem with the way he was walking into the ring. And apparently his spine was collapsed thanks to the steroid use. Like the steroids were eating away at his body. That goes to show you how bad of a problem Billy Graham had with steroids. That the steroids were literally harming him and eating him. It's crazy. And Graham admitted as well he started during his time in college, which isn't a surprise. But the steroids usage had a problem in his home life. Like he wouldn't be abusive to his wife, but he would smash a lot of things. He would go into a sense of a rage, destroying furniture. He would be angry. He would go on a rampage sometimes. And the environment wasn't great. And Billy Graham's wife was not happy, but she later admitted the only way she would get revenge on Billy Graham was if she stabbed him with a legit needle to put the steroids into him. Pretty sad. Pretty sad that she would admit that that's the way she got revenge. Oh, golly, great revenge. But it's pretty sad the fact that she admitted, I stabbed him with the needle with the steroids just so I could get some hint of revenge on him. That's pretty sad. And with everything that happened with Vince Sr., Billy Graham got better, and he was basically ready to watch the world burn down, and he was ready to throw one Vince McMahon under the bus. So we now get into the Phil Donahue show. Now, the Phil Donahue show was big in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They would have people go on their show, talk about current events. It was an American talk show, Phil Donahue covered topics on the WWF scandal. And multiple names were involved in this, including Vince McMahon Jr., Bruno Sammartino, who also went after Vince because Bruno did not like where the business was going. Dave Meltzer was there, Barry Orton, Murray Hodgins, Tom Hankins, John Arezzi, who they got to interview here, and of course, superstar Billy Graham. Of course, this was during the time when the steroid trials were at its height, and superstar Billy Graham decides to go all in on the company, going after them, talking about how steroid use is bad, this and that. And he basically did that because Hogan went on a show, the Arsenio Hall show, I believe it was, and he basically claimed that, oh, I only used steroids 3 times in my career just to heal for some injuries. Yeah. And I make a gajillion doing this job. See how easy it is to tell stories? Yeah, Hogan, like, I have a 4-part article on StadiumRant.com called The Atomic Drop of Lies Told by Hulk Hogan. Like, this guy has turned lying into an art form. It's crazy. It's crazy how much he's lied, which is why I don't believe a single thing the man says anymore. Now, Graham decides to go on the Phil Donahue show, and he exposes Hogan for doing the steroids. He, like, oh, you absolutely have been taking steroids. And he makes the claim saying that he himself had injected steroids into Hogan. And apparently, I thought that was true. Apparently, Valerie, his wife, confirmed this. That was a lie. He didn't even inject him at all into Hogan. Vince called him out publicly on it, but he lied on the show because of the steroid trials and with injecting Hogan with steroids. Something that wasn't mentioned, and this doesn't paint him in a good light at all, and I cannot believe that the Dark Side of the Ring crew didn't cover this. It's a big miss on their part, and maybe they couldn't put it in for time. He also lied about the Ring Boys scandal. Of course, this was when Terry Garvin, Mel Phillips, and Pat Patterson were accused of essaying, I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get demonetized, essaying young ring boys who would work the shows for them. Billy Graham would actually claim, like, a lot of numerous things that were insane, and admitted like he was witness to a few of the assaults, especially to one Pat Patterson, where he claimed that, oh, I saw Pat Patterson doing it especially. And Graham would later admit, yeah, I lied about that too. I was bitter. I shouldn't have done that. It was just one of the biggest mistakes in my life. What an evil thing for someone to do. Like, yes, Pat Patterson doesn't come across well in the Ring Boy scandal, but don't lie about something like that. That doesn't make you look good. That just makes you even guilty too. Like, it's a horrendous thing to lie about, and I can't believe the documentary didn't cover that. And, so after that, he gets to be more bitter, and it turns out Billy Graham was a terrible father to his kids. Like, he did not treat his son and his daughter well at all. He had a very strange relationship, especially with his son. I mean, he hated Graham because he left his mother, that he never had a father figure. He felt like he never had that because he left the mother. And something that I did not know, he was born with a hole in his heart. That's what he legit says in this. He was born with a hole in his heart, and Billy Graham pushed him aside for his daughter, which I cannot believe he would do that. That's crazy. So, like, when you hear stories like that, it doesn't surprise you to find out that his son didn't choose Billy Graham's last name, Coleman. He chose his mother's maiden name. And then we get to his daughter. While he favored his daughter, she also had a strange relationship with him too. Because when she got married, he never got invited to the wedding at all, which is pretty telling that your dad wouldn't get invited in an invitation to the wedding. And he had the brother. Billy Graham's son was the one that walked Billy Graham's daughter at the wedding, which is crazy. It's clear that, the him leaving his first wife had an effect on them, and he didn't really forgive them. And apparently he never even paid child support. Like, he didn't even care to pay child support. Or even if he did, he didn't have the money for it. I mean, I think the key thing here is don't take any advice parenting wise from Billy Graham. So Billy Graham's wrestling career is pretty much over, and he's doing all this stuff like after everything went downhill for him. Billy Graham found peace though because he became like a minister, which I mean would make sense. He had the charisma to become a minister, and he sort of found peace. And he even wrote a play. This is something that I did not know either. He wrote a play that was titled Empty Ring, The Empty Ring, that was focused on his life, his career, everything involving pro wrestling. You want to know who he got to play as himself? He didn't get a regular actor. He didn't get a D-level actor. He got Jake the Snake Roberts to play him in this. And they were showing clips of it. I'm like, it's so bizarre to see Jake the Snake Roberts try to do a superstar Billy Graham in person. Like, it's crazy. I mean, good for Jake the Snake Roberts being a part of it, but like, I gotta figure out where I can find this entire play if it's available online, because the highlights I saw were bizarre and I kind of want to see it. You know what I mean? And Billy Graham also had severe health issues as well. He had, oh God, there was a ton of health issues he had, but the main one was hepatitis C that he claims he got in a match. You know, another victim of they weren't so protective with hepatitis back in the day. Like in the Abdul the Butcher episode, he basically would always cut himself in the forehead. He had hepatitis C and he gave it to many pro wrestlers at the time, including Hannibal. Even though Hannibal doesn't really come off all that well in that episode either. But he's battling health issues and he had a failing liver. Like, there was one point in his life where he was given 6 weeks to live by a doctor in 2002. And he was almost on the edge of death. So, realizing he didn't have enough time left, he wanted to go make peace with Vince McMahon. He called him up, apologizing for everything. And Vince was so gracious that he would do that. I mean, this wasn't mentioned either. And I remembered the Solid Monster mentioning this when he was covering Billy Graham when he passed away. He basically informed everybody that Vince McMahon gave Billy Graham an allowance of money to help him pay for medical bills and etc. That should have been mentioned on here. I mean, yes, Vince is an evil human being, but he has done good things over his life. More evil than bad, but some good. And eventually Billy Graham got his transplant in the year 2003. I'm sorry, 2002 or 2003. And he lived an extra 21 years on this earth. So that's good for him. But he then later got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's just great to see him. He was in a happy state. He was being welcomed in. But he did have money. This was another thing they didn't mention. He also had money issues in the later part of his life. Like, he sold his WWE Hall of Fame ring. When Dusty Rhodes passed away, he even asked WWE if he could step up to the plate and take the role of Dusty Rhodes. Keep in mind, this was a month before Dusty passed. And Billy Graham's like, yeah, I could take his role for him. Which, him and Dusty Rhodes were close, I know that. But probably would have been better if this was done a little later, especially for a company and a business and a roster that was still in mourning for Dusty, as he was beloved in there. But you know, it was just poor timing for him. And to be honest, with the health issues he had, I don't even think he would have lasted long in that role. I mean, I really wouldn't. Yes, he would live like 8 more years later, but his liver problems were tremendous. He would constantly go into the hospital left, right, and center. I mean, even his kids admitted, like, they've lost track how many times this man was in the hospital at the end of his life, which is scary to think about how bad his health issues was. And there was one time in 2023 where they knew, like, yeah, he's nearing the end. And they saw a photo of Billy Graham, and I've seen the photo too. It was briefly shown on the Dark Side show, and it was also shown everywhere on social media at the time. And he looked horrible. Like, this wasn't mentioned either, but he lost like 60 pounds during his last day at the hospital. And it's scary, like it's sad seeing him in that state. It really, really is sad to see him. And of course, his son and his daughter decided, you know what? Yeah, we're flying. We're going to go see him and try to reconcile with him. And Billy Graham did reconcile with them, which this is great. This is really great that because they had an estranged relationship, and during his final weeks or days, that he got into a good, he left on good terms with them in the end of his life. And so, when I think the key line that really made me, kind of upset and depressed a little bit, Billy Graham's son saw him, and he admitted that this was the first time in a long time that he got to see his dad instead of the superstar gimmick, which that's depressing because superstar Billy Graham, he was a big guy, buff, and just seeing his dad for the first time instead of superstar, it's heartwarming, a little heartwarming because he finally got to connect with his dad again, but it was also sad because of the bad state that he was in. And during the last time that his son would see him, they would talk about, stories about his mother, his first mother. And it was obvious at that time that Billy knew his days were numbered, and he made things right with the son, which is great. And he also made peace with his daughter too at the end of his life, where when his daughter came, they played Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's he's a great musician. Great choice. And to get him into a better mood, and Billy Graham was happy there. But his condition just got worse. The man had sepsis, his organs were failing, and because of the infections that he had with his ear and his head, he became deaf. It was at the end where the kids and Valerie got pulled aside, and they're like, we have to pull the plug. It was terrible. And so when Billy Graham died, they put the phone by him to, wish him goodbye because they had to fly back to their respective state. And Billy Graham's last words to his kids were, "I love you." So, and Graham would later pass at the age of 79. Look, for the life he lived, I think it's great that he got to reconcile with his family, his kids, and he got the peace that he was long looking for. And I gotta say, for Billy Graham to last as long as he's had, to the age of 79 years old and all the health issues, it's a miracle he lasted as long as he did. And I'm kind of happy for him that he got that. So I just want to say a few things as well with Billy Graham. One of the more influential people in the business. He revolutionized everything. It's a very understatement how important this man is. And it's a shame that he didn't come a decade earlier, because if he did, he would have been one of the top stars in the business in the 80s and probably would have had more title reigns. And I think the two words, like I said with him, it's a cautionary tale of why nobody should take steroids, whether it's in the long term or the short term, because the risk you take there, it's not worth it in the end. It really isn't. And that concludes my review on the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Billy Graham. I hope you enjoyed. Next week's episode, which is going to be on Tuesday, is going to be on Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, who is one of the more underrated parts of ECW, especially because he actually helped in the booking. And as a pro wrestler, he was great too in that company. It's going to be interesting to see what they cover there. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a quickie 30-minute video. I wanted to get my thoughts on the Billy Graham episode. Wanted to explain it here. I do have an article that's going to be posted on stadiumrant.com that's going to cover more of the Billy Graham episode. Make sure you check that out. And remember one thing as well, Ringside Rant will be back. We will be back on Thursday, 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. We will be recording our hour-long, stream. And I can't wait for me and the boys to be back together again and watch this. I hope you guys have a good day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you liked it. And remember, if you're not down with that, we got two words for you. Acknowledge us.